Hey guys, here I am in my garage with my new unboxing video. Just kidding, I don't have any money. So Jason was talking about his new set downgrade and like I'm just in my garage. This kind of sucks. Can we do a set change?
Magic. I actually like this place a lot better. You know, it might not be a Spillwood chair, but I really like the couches. It's almost as if this was home. Hey guys, welcome back. Last week we covered the rise of communism in China. Well, not really last week. Like, we took a break because our editors were too lazy. Anyways, this week we'll be covering nationalism and their rise in other countries, mainly India, but not limited to this specific country. Now, before World War I, there was two political parties in India. Both strove to fight for independence from British rule. They were the Hindu Congress Party and the Muslim League, established in 1885 and 1906 respectively. However, it was before World War I and nationalism wasn't popular. Granted, we see Germany unifying, Italy unifying, but still, it wasn't such a big concern for most Indians. But after World War I, things changed. Now you see, the reason why many joined the independence movement after World War I was, well, because of Great Britain. As we'll see later, Great Britain did many things that would impact our modern day society. But let's talk about India. What Britain wanted was more troops, since you can't really get a lot of troops from the tiny British Isles. So what they did was they recruited. They recruited troops from Commonwealth such as Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and India. And well, what they did for incentive for India was basically they said, hey, India, if your troops fight for us, we'll grant you guys independence eventually. And India's like, that's such a great idea. So obviously they will swell the ranks of the British Army. And World War I happened and Britain won. But after World War I, when Indian troops were returning back home to India in 1919, they found themselves, again, second-class citizens within their own country. What's up, Britain, man? Did you get cold feet or something where you're like, you know what? I don't know if India wants independence. Like, yeah, all they do is ask for it, but like, no. Okay, anyways. Yeah, okay, so the Indians responded by launching terrorist attacks on the British government. And in response, the British government passed the infamous Rowlatt Acts, which is basically like, we can jail you without giving you a trial. It's much like during the American Civil War when drafting and conscription was introduced. Abraham Lincoln suspended habeas corpus. It's much like that. It's very controversial and ended up jailing tens of thousands of protesters without any trial. In a region known as Punjab, which is in modern day India, is bordering Pakistan, but of course Pakistan didn't exist back then. So thousands of Indians flocked to the city to peacefully protest, in which they would fast and pray and really do nothing wrong to disturb the peace. However, little did they know, the British passed an act that forbade public meetings. Whoops. The British garrison commander there obviously did not know that they didn't know, so he thought they were openly defying the law. So he told his troops to fire upon them. A result was 400 Indians died and 1,200 were wounded in this famously coined Armistice Massacre. So almost overnight, millions of Indians demanded independence because they were really mad. So if you want to know my opinion on peaceful protests, I know I'm not a historical scholar, but just from a person's perspective, dear peaceful protest, I have nothing wrong with you. In fact, I'm an advocate for you. You solve things that don't require violence, and that's always a plus. But seriously, history hates you. Like we can see from the Bloody Sunday Massacre we covered in the Russian Revolution. I guess good things never last very long, do they? Anyways, thank you. So now we're going to be covering a familiar face that hopefully all of you should have heard about. His name is Mohandas Gandhi. He emerged as the leader of the independence movement soon after the Armistice Massacre. He was a deeply religious man, and he took a very religious approach to protesting, which often involved nonviolence, which would influence the teachings of Martin Luther King Jr. later. He would combine all of the world's most major religions and use it to solve his problems. For example, Hinduism, Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, and Jainism. His followers would give him the name Mahatma, which would mean great soul, because of his nonviolent and civil disobedience approach. He was a member of the Hindu Congress Party. However, he supported open equality between the Hindus and Muslims, which freaked a couple people out, which we'll see later, but despite this was a very radical change. He launched a campaign of boycotts, strikes, and demonstrations. One of the most infamous ones was the Salt March. So basically what happened was that the British government taxed salt products, so Gandhi and his followers then marched to the sea and collected salt from the ocean, which is a pretty good idea, until some of his followers, decided that they would march on the local salt processing facility owned by the British government. What could go wrong, right? The police were tipped off and met the demonstrators fully armed, especially with the infamous steel-tipped bats. Again, peaceful protest. This is what happens in history. The police assaulted the crowd in a sickening attack where they were beating the citizens to a pulp, while the citizens would not fight back because of their belief in non-violence. Reporters from all over the world captured this event live, and the world was just absolutely terrified of what they saw. 60,000 people were arrested, including Gandhi himself. And this continued to happen until 1935. The British Parliament was finally pressured into passing the Government of India Act, which promoted self-rule and limited self-rule within India. However, there was still a lot of animosity, especially within India itself. There was a fine line between Muslims and Hindus, and the Hindus obviously outnumbered the Muslims, and they were afraid, the Muslims that is, they were afraid that they would be living in a country run by people that weren't them. Now, nationalism was not only present in India. We're going to be looking over another example, especially in Turkey. Now, after World War I, the Allies decided that Ottoman Empire had to be gone, so they dissolved it. In response, many of the regions that the Ottoman Empire encompassed declared themselves independent. Let's take Anatolia, the Anatolia region, for example, or Turkey. In 1919, the Greeks invaded the region, and the Sultan in power didn't do jack because he didn't really have any real power. However, a commander by the name of Mustafa Kemal rose to power, and he defeated the Greeks and eventually declared himself the president of Turkey. Kemal established a state that was separated from religion, which is very common as we see today. He also adopted a government system that was very westernized and modeled after the European nations. He also granted women's suffrage and started industrializing Turkey. And by the time he died in 1938, Turkey was a much better place than it was before he took power. And in response, the Turkish people renamed him Ataturk, or the father of the Turks. Now, Persia also experienced the same things as India and Turkey. Basically, after World War I, the British tried to seize power in the region, which triggered a full-on revolution. An army officer deposed of the Shah and became the leader. His name was Reza Shah Pahlavi, and he would initiate similar reforms as in Turkey. However, he would rule as an absolute ruler. We'll look at Persia, or as he renamed the country, Iran, and as we know it as today, later in what will be possibly one of the most dangerous events in history, i.e. the Iranian hostage crisis. Story. A man named Abd Abal Ibn Saud, I'm not even going to try. He unified all of modern day the Arabian area and renamed it Saudi Arabia after his family. He, however, would not establish a state separated by religion. In fact, Arabic traditions and Islamic traditions were very present in the region. He did, however, modernize the region, allowing technology such as phones, but telephones, that is, not our modern day modern phones. But however, if it went up against his religion, it wasn't going to cut it. So this pretty much wraps up chapter 14. Later, and right now actually, we see that the Middle East is very important because of one resource that makes the world go round: oil. And of course, this would lead to more expansion by major world superpowers such as Britain and France. and yeah, sometimes even in the United States of America. But later, as we'll see, something else was taking the attention away from the Middle East, namely Germany and Italy, if you know who I'm talking about. Today we covered the independence movement in India and how Gandhi impacted it. We discovered how Turkey was established, and how modern day Iran was also established, and we see Saudi Arabia becoming a very religious country. I'll see you next time.